Looking for a fast-charging, ultra-responsive stylus for your iPad? Meet the 2X Fast Charge Active Stylus Pen, designed for 2018 to 2025 Apple iPads. Take your creativity and productivity to the next level. Click the link in the video description to shop now on Amazon.
Myanmar earthquake death toll over 1,000, with dozens missing in Bangkok. The death toll from a powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar jumped to more than 1,000 today, as more bodies were pulled from the rubble. Scores of buildings collapsed when it struck near the country's second-largest city, and the country's military-led government said that 1,002 people have now been found dead and another 2,376 injured. A state of emergency has been declared in 6 regions and states in Myanmar, which is in the throes of a prolonged and bloody civil war. The earthquake also shook neighboring Thailand, killing 6 people and injuring 26 at 3 construction sites, including one where a partially built high-rise collapsed in Bangkok. Another 47 people were still missing, authorities said on Saturday. Bangkok Governor Chadchart Sitapunt said more people were believed to be alive in the wreckage as search efforts continued on Saturday morning. To view this video, please enable JavaScript and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5. Video. Up next, a number of people across the region have been reported dead as rescue workers search collapsed buildings in Myanmar and Thailand. Here are the casualties from the 7.7 magnitude earthquake so far. Metro will be back tomorrow morning to provide further updates on the earthquakes in Myanmar and Thailand. To view this video, please enable JavaScript and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5. Video. Up next, a woman who was evacuated from the hospital in Bangkok after the earthquake earlier today has given birth. The woman was seen lying on a stretcher as nurses and doctors attended to her, helping to deliver the baby while the entire hospital was waiting outside on the pavement. The earthquake in Myanmar this morning was one of the largest to hit the country in decades. Seismic activity isn't uncommon in the area, but the last 7.7 magnitude quake to hit the country was in 1946. Voranut Thurawat, a lawyer working in central Bangkok, said her first indication that something was wrong came when she saw a light swinging back and forth. Then she heard the building creaking as it moved from the shockwaves. She and her colleagues ran down 12 flights of stairs. "In my lifetime, there was no earthquake like this in Bangkok," she said. Mandy Tang, 38, said she was watching a film called The Red Envelope when the earthquake happened. "It happened to be quite an action-packed scene when the shake happened, so I initially thought it could have been a max effects," she said. "I looked around, and none of the local audience left their seats. However, my Taiwanese friend insisted it was an earthquake, so I walked out of the theater with her, and we met the security guards coming to evacuate us just outside the theater. We could see the doors were opening and closing, all the chairs were shaking. It was quite nerve-wracking. I've never experienced such a strong shake. It is quite scary." The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said, "The government of Myanmar has asked for international support, and our team in Myanmar is already in contact in order to fully mobilize our resources in the region to support the people of Myanmar." But of course, there are other countries impacted. The epicenter is in Myanmar, and Myanmar is the weakest country in this present situation. Rescue crews are working through the night to help free more than 110 people trapped under the rubble. Thailand's Deputy Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul said, "There is still a possibility of finding more bodies, as some are trapped under the building's structure. Special techniques are needed to safely remove these bodies to prevent further collapses caused by shifting structural elements." Haider Yaqub, country director for Plan International in Myanmar, who is currently in Yangon, said, "Although a full picture of the damage is still emerging, most of us have never seen such destruction. There are high levels of stress and anxiety, as people are trying to reach their relatives and disinformation is spreading on social media. Without a doubt, the humanitarian needs will be significant. We are working hard to make contact with communities in the hardest hit areas in and around Mandalay, but already we know that critical infrastructure has been destroyed, with landlines not functioning, and that houses and other buildings have collapsed not just in Myanmar, but in neighboring Thailand as well. This disaster strikes when Myanmar is already grappling with conflict, and we are extremely concerned about the toll that yet another crisis will take on children, especially girls, and their families. The head of Myanmar's military government has said 144 people are dead, and more than 730 were injured in the powerful earthquake that hit the region on Friday. Further casualties are expected to be found as the search continues. The earthquake in Myanmar has prompted warnings in other nearby countries. China's Ministry of Natural Resources issued a tsunami warning earlier today, and coastal areas in Thailand are also on high alert. No tsunami has actually formed, but areas near the quake are still on alert in case of aftershocks, which could materialize into a tsunami. British couple Simon and Linda Swan, from Merseyside, arrived in Bangkok yesterday just 17 hours before the earthquake hit. Ex-firefighter Simon, 56, said, "It was around lunchtime, and we were on the 10th floor of the hotel when we felt the earthquake. The first thing you do when something like that happens is that your mind doesn't want to believe what it's seeing and feeling. But the tiles started falling off the bathroom walls, and the bed and furniture started moving around the room. My wife and I just grabbed our things and ran. It was unbelievably frightening. We had these visions of the building collapsing. We just ran for the exit and ran down 10 flights of stairs. There were children screaming. There was debris scattered around. The hotel the couple are staying in has reopened, and the area is safe, but they are shaken by their experience. It was the scariest moment of my life. I was a firefighter for 30 years, and my wife was a nurse on the Wirral, and we've both never been so frightened in all our lives." Myanmar's ruling party has called for further donations of blood and medical supplies to help people hospitalized after the 7.7 magnitude earthquake. Military government spokesperson Zaw Min Tun referenced so many injuries in major city centers, which required more medical supplies and blood. To view this video, please enable JavaScript and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5. Video. Up next, tens of thousands of people could have died in the 7.7 magnitude earthquake today, geological experts have said. The U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, have issued a red alert for shaking-related fatalities and economic losses. The scientists have said fatalities reaching over 10,000 people is the most likely outcome. The staggering figure has a 34% likelihood, they say, although the group placed 33% odds on the figure remaining in the thousands. Past red alerts have required a national or international response, the USGS warned. The U.S. government agency are predicting millions of pounds worth of damage could also be left in the earthquake's wake. Over 796,000 people in the region faced violent shaking, according to USGC. Another 15 million experienced severe, very strong or strong tremors. Central Bangkok trains on a 50 FT high monorail violently shook back and forth, as as the powerful earthquake hit Thailand. Footage shows the empty carriage rocking as the magnitude 7.7 tremor rattled the BTS SkyTrain station in the capital city at around 2:20 p.m. Brian Bapty, a seismologist with the British Geological Society, previously told Sky News the earthquake could have a devastating impact. To view this video, please enable JavaScript and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5. Video. Up next, he said, the ground shaking from the earthquake is likely to have been severe, very, very strong. When you have severe ground shaking, and you have many people, you also have many people exposed to that shaking. And those people are living in buildings quite vulnerable to that shaking. I would expect a large amount of damage and significant numbers of fatalities. The earthquake was also a particularly shallow one, only 6.2 miles from the Earth's crust. Bapty says this would have intensified its impact. The video shows the strength of the tremors in Bangkok, which was over 60 miles away from the epicenter near Mandalay in Myanmar. Thailand's Prime Minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, has arrived at the scene of a collapsed skyscraper in Bangkok. The building, which was under construction, came crashing down with a crane on top during the tremors. Rescue efforts are continue frantically as it hits 8 p.m. there. Rescuers have not yet started removing rubble as they wait for cranes to arrive. It is thought a number of workers inside the building are trapped inside the lift shaft. 3 are confirmed dead, and the Thai deputy PM said 81 are still missing in the rubble. Earlier today, the PM, who has been in charge since August, spoke to reporters and called for calm after an emergency meeting following the earthquake. To view this video, please enable JavaScript and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5. Video. Up next, the Red Cross are struggling to reach the most hard-hit regions of Myanmar because of fallen electricity and network lines. The humanitarian organization, their teams are trying to reach Mandalay and Sagaing regions and southern Shan State. Initial reports from the ground suggest the earthquake has caused significant damage, the Red Cross said. Information on humanitarian needs is still being gathered. Transport is also being hindered by wrecked roads, which were severely cracked by the seismic activity, as well as a number of collapsed bridges in the country. To view this video, please enable JavaScript and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5. Video. Up next, about 20 people have died at a major hospital in Myanmar's capital following the devastation caused by the quake, a doctor told AFP. About 20 people died after they arrived at our hospital so far. Many people were injured, said the doctor at the 1,000-bed General Hospital in Naypyidaw, who requested anonymity. Rows of wounded lay outside the hospital, which hospital staff called a mass casualty area. Victims are arriving in cars, pickup trucks and stretchers, with many covered in dust and covered in blood. The hospital's emergency department was heavily damaged itself by the seismic activity, but work treating earthquake victims continues. To view this video, please enable JavaScript and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5. Video. Up next, first footage is emerging of the historic capital of Myanmar, just 10 miles away from the epicenter of the 7.7 magnitude earthquake. Buildings and historic sites in Mandalay, which was the last royal capital of Myanmar, were rocked by the seismic activity. Video show towers collapses and dust filling the streets as locals fill the streets in panic. Motorcycles still lay collapsed on the streets, where people had fallen during the vibrations and run to safety. Mandalay Palace, constructed by the country's monarchy in the 1850s, suffered significant damage during the earthquake. The building's wall appears destroyed in parts. Era. More British couple who ran £4 million fake Xanax empire are jailed. Era. More map shows devastating scale of 7.7 magnitude earthquake that's hit Myanmar and Thailand. Era. More 153 dead and hundreds injured after 7.7 earthquake rocks Myanmar and Thailand. Stay on top of the headlines with daily email updates. This site is protected by Ray CAPTCHA and the Google privacy policy and terms of service apply. Your information will be used in line with our privacy policy.